Hello, this is Will Durant from Ozark Aerial Video, and I've got my time-lapse camera beside me. This is my long-term time-lapse camera. I can do time-lapses for well over a year, 2 years if need be, 24/7, or as you might need. Now, this is really great for construction. If you wanted to see how a construction project was coming along over the period of a year or 2 years, we can set it up to where it will take pictures during the day, or just during the working hours, or during 24/7, which I've done before. And so this is a weather sealed camera that can stay in one position for a very long time. Now, if we're doing a shorter time lapse, I may use just a camera and a separate battery for either a 1 day or even a few hours of capturing. So it just depends. If you're doing a shorter 1 day where there's a lot of activity and things are moving fast, then you can I'll take pictures more frequently. In other words, maybe every 30 seconds, every minute. If you're doing a one that lasts longer, meaning up to a year, perhaps once an hour during the workday, and you'll be able to get a reasonable length of a video with all the photos that I take afterward. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we're talking about 4K time-lapse quality. So there are a lot of less expensive time-lapse cameras that are on the market, and they may only shoot 720K. And they're, certainly 4K is not real rare right now, but common cameras for time construction are in the lower quality range. So, but we shoot 4K, and so the video will come out. And if you decide to do a time lapse, one thing I'll ask you would be, how long do you want the final video? So if you need a 10-second clip, or a 1-minute clip, or a 2-minute clip, you may really not want one much longer than at most 3 minutes. That would be pretty long, and it would have to be a major project for that, which we can do. I'm just saying you may not want one that long. So whether it's a 1 day or a 2-year time lapse, we can compress this into well under a minute, from either a 1 day thing being 30 seconds to whatever length of video you want it to come out to at the other end, really. So now, while time lapse, I'm fascinated with that, and but I do other things too. My rooster in the background making a lot of noise. But also the company that I started 6 years ago was based on aerial drone work, and in that I can do aerial time lapses. I can do aerial 360s, rotational videos, and all types of movements with the drone to capture what you want. And in photos also, of course, photos are basic, but I shoot in RAW, and I edit my photos, and I edit all my work. So I may capture a lot more than what I actually give you at the end, meaning what you want. I typically will capture as much as I can when I come on site to do a job, because it's easier just to stay there and get what you need, and then look for other things that you might want, and may just throw those in the package with it. So now, as far as pricing for these type of things to get, whether it be time lapse or aerial work, I'll be up front. I mean, there are less expensive drone workers, and that's fine. Most of those are going to be doing very simple photographs, maybe some video, but it's not what you would call experienced video, and it's certainly not. A lot of it may not be edited. In other words, to do what I do from conception to completion to the customer, what I graded as professional work. I do spend, like I say, I've been in business for 6 years, and there's not many days that go by that I don't am not studying and improving my skill in either drone flying, photograph work, or video work. So if we do the video, I of course do the final editing, and then we'll give you a chance to look at it and see if that's what you like, if there's any changes you want on it. If it's a large project, let's say it's a long-term time-lapse, and that can be anything from what would you call long-term? It could be more than one day, could be considered long-term. But you know, particularly, let's say if it was a one-year project, a construction project, I would meet with you and find out where you wanted to get the capture from, and what you would like to have at the end. And I can also incorporate drone work in with the time-lapse, which I've done before. And then what gives a little bit of a break in the video too. Sometimes looking straight at a time-lapse for more than literally 20-30 seconds at one time is kind of straining. It can be neat, I get it, but in the big picture, these type of videos need to be broken up, I think. And I think that aerial and even still and ground video that we can add to it can add some depth to the project. The people that I've done this for have been very pleased, and so I enjoy doing it. It's as much an art as it is a science, and so just to say the price reflects that. A real quick story. I won't mention any names, but there was I got a call from a realtor one time, and it was a $3 million property on the White River. And he called me, and we started discussing what I could provide for him to really showcase the property. And whether it be aerial 360s, aerial work, ground work, interior work. You wouldn't use time-lapse so much for real estate. But anyway, we went over the whole deal. And we'd been talking for a while. And keep in mind, he called me and I said, well, what's your budget for this? And the reason I asked that, that's a common question, because at some point you can extend and basically make a full-blown production movie for a project, or you can narrow it down to particularly what the customer wants and within the budget of what the customer is willing. But anyway, long story short, when I brought up the budget, the response was about $50, and that's pretty incredulous. You practically can't drive on site and set up gear for $50 nowadays. So I'm not saying that my prices are $100. They're not. I think probably for real photograph work only, just a few photos. You're probably talking around the 400 and higher range, depending on how many photos and what type of photos. Video work can be easily touch into the, I would say, what's a minimum? Minimum probably the 500-600, and it can go up into the thousands depending on the amount of work that's done. And when I say the amount of work, it's not just the 2 minutes in the air. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a project that might require coming back numerous times, even different times of the year, to capture and monitor the project to get the final video that you want. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm outpricing many jobs. That's really not the case. I do think you'll be happy with what you get. If you are looking for discount drone work, you can probably find that. But what are you going to probably get? You may actually even get what you might satisfy you as someone as maybe a realtor for the type of product that you get, and that may be true. But on the other hand, to maintain the drones, keep a drone without it crashing or breaking or just wearing out, and keeping up with the photograph work and the and keeping up with the most modern, best methods for editing the video and the photographs that you'd be wanting. You have to keep in mind those people won't be in business very long. It's just part of it, and so when you get into the bigger area of production, even small production or long-term time-lapse, it's going to cost something, but I'm not saying it's going to cost the farm. But everything's in perspective. So if you're interested in this, what you can do is call me. And I think the worst thing you can do is just say, give me your price sheet, because that's really not, you can't do that. If it's a short project and easier to capture and produce and to deliver, the price will be lower. If it's a long project or a huge project, and even a project that might even include higher risk for flying the drone, or a certain amount of risk, because every time you place a long-term time-lapse camera, you have to think about security also. So there's always a chance of damage, stolen, or the equipment just breaking. But if you're in the middle of a project, those have to be replaced. And so same thing with a drone. And good quality drones now, when I say good quality drones, the price varies, but I would say you're probably looking at $1,500 to $3,000 for a professional level drone. You can certainly get drones that are less expensive, and they will produce a picture, don't get me wrong, but drones don't last forever. And I have not crashed one yet, knock on wood, and done that, but they do have their issues, and so you have to keep up with them, keep your equipment going, and to do that, that's built into the price also. Am I going to need to fly 3,000 feet away for the project? That you begin to think of extra risk of flying at distances. I do buy insurance if I feel I need it. If I'm in the middle of nowhere and very remote areas, I may not get insurance because the risk is so low it doesn't warrant getting it for the flight. But certainly if it's in a populated area, or there are people around, and there's gear that if the drone fell out of the sky and did damage, certainly go with insurance. To answer your question on the insurance issue, most times I do get insurance. On the very few rare occasions where I'm really in the middle of nowhere, it's nothing but trees and no people, no buildings or anything like that, then I may opt not to. But usually those are quick jobs, and they're not requiring. They don't take a lot of risk. So, insurance is part of what I do when I fly. Generally, I would say that I do insure my flights when I go. So, really, I just want to touch base with you and catch up to speed on our capabilities. And they do cover the gamut, from time-lapse to ground photos to ground video. Ground meaning you're on the ground, you're not in the air, and aerial. 360 photos in the air and on the ground. Sometimes those are very useful, and these can be put into a delivery link that has numerous 360 photos that you can go from one to the other. And so there's quite a varied option of what I can provide. If you feel a need for this, give me a call. I really enjoy doing construction, because construction has a real vital need for capturing how the project is going along. You can see what's going on, the progress of the construction site, and so those are ideal. Other things that I've done with the drone is aerial mapping. Now I get a few calls on people wanting surveys for aerial mapping, and you must understand that I don't find corners for a person. So if someone says, I've got this property and there's let's just say 4 corners. Let's say it's a square rectangle, and they're looking for those corners. I really can't help you with that, but what I can do is I can tell you the elevation, the vegetation state, whether it's good or bad, within that property, and then I can draw rough lines from known points of the corners of the property, so you can see the borders of that, and that's always usually pretty nice. And as far as surveying, what I can do is I can work with a surveyor. Let's say you have a fairly large area that you want to have surveyed, and if you hire a surveying team, they'll come out and do it manually, and they'll place their pole every few feet and get a measurement. Now, that's about as accurate as we can get. However, it's expensive on large areas, and it requires a lot of manpower, and it requires a long time. But what I can do with areas that don't have, let's say no trees or high vegetation, brushy areas, ideally, we're talking about landscaped areas that have been scraped off. What we can do is get a surveyor and lay 3 to 6 set points, it depends on the size of the area, where the surveyor will come in and put in strategically placed surveyed marks, and he'll mark those, and then when I fly the drone, I will take into account those positions of those marks that are placed by the surveyor, and then I can fly it and get very high accuracy for topography of the area. And so where instead of, you can envision some places having thousands of survey marks, and you can imagine the amount of time, it can, a month or more, depending on the size of the property, if you're trying to get a topographic area. And whereas I can come in to these areas with the drone and just a handful of survey marks, use those to calibrate what data I'm finding with the drone, and give you a very accurate survey map of topography of the area in much quicker time and at a much less expense. Other things, and I'll add this and then I'll come to an end, and that is volumes of dirt and large piles. We're talking areas, mounds of gravel and dirt that can be, dozens of feet high. And these can be laid out in quarries, different types of large volume areas. And so I can measure those volumes very accurately and very quickly, as well as with the topography issues. You just need a few survey points instead of having the surveyors climb each mountain, come up and down, up and down, up and down as they get calculations. So that is a very viable option for people that own quarries, mines, or doing a lot of dirt work. You can use the drone with just a few survey marks and get an accurate volume and even see how much of the cut and fill you need to have for an area. So anyway, I thank you for watching. It's just kind of a catch up of what's going on. You can see most, maybe not all, but most of my work on my YouTube page. And when you go to the YouTube page, it's Ozark Aerial Video, and go to the playlist if you're looking for drone work. There's a playlist of drone and aerial topics that I've put a lot of, there's quite a few videos in there of some of the projects that I've done in the past. And that'll give you an idea. In fact, I'd encourage you to look at that, and that way you can peruse some of the videos and go, that's kind of what we need. So if you contact me, then you're able to say, well, I would like to have this done or that done. Also, I think there's a separate playlist in there for hyperlapse and time-lapse. As you can see on a lot of the work I've done, I've overlaid these, I've intermingled these to where a long-term time-lapse will have some aerial in it, and vice versa. some aerial may have some time-lapse in it also. So those two playlists on the YouTube channel will give you a good idea of what we do. Other than that, if you don't mind, if you see a video that you like, go ahead and like it. And if you want to follow the work that I'm doing, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. All these things, when people click a like or they subscribe, it encourages other people to, it shows up more, and it encourages other people to come to the channel too. So if you like it and you think other people may have an interest, then they'll be able to pick up the channel easier. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day, and I will connect with you again next time.